Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to October's giveaway. I'm just going to give it a second or so we can get started. So I hope you're all having a lovely week. Oh, before I forget, I've had a few questions about me markers that I use for me top kit. So anyone like watching this back and talk about it, if someone asks again, I can show it again. But basically what they are, if you can see, they're an acrylic paint marker, they're called. Good friend of mine, Baz, put me onto these, and they're a 0.7 mil. So you can see there where my finger is, 0.7 mil, like the pen size. And Joe got me them from Amazon. And just quickly show you like working them. Because when you get them, obviously there's paint inside it. So what I'm going to do is, I can get I've got a million pads, but at least this way I can show you how I work them. So I'm going to move our winners out of the way just so I could have completely messed that right up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and point this down so you can see me pad a second. So I'll just get myself like a little bit of kitchen roll. You just want to do this basically to get the pen working. So just give it a shake. You can hear the ball bearing inside it. And then all I do is just pop it on a pad and just push the paint. So you can see when you push the nib down, that's what releases the paint. So I literally just scribble around a little bit with it just to make sure the paint's flowing. You can see that it is. And then before I mark my top kits, all I do is just literally wipe the end of it with a bit of kitchen roll. And then now when you actually go to write with it, it's just nice and clean to be able to do your top kits. So then all I do, imagine, say, this is my top kit. I have me tape, which is, if I've got it somewhere, I can't see it, but all I do is with my top kit, I just go down and do all the lines first, like so, on my top kit, you know, with a tape measure next to it. Let them lines dry. So just leave it, you know, let them dry overnight. It's the best way of doing it. And then the following morning, you know, they'll all be dry, the following afternoon. And then that would be the way your top kit is. And then you can literally write next to it wherever you want, you know, 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, like going down your top kit. And that way you'll find that, especially if you're right-handed, which I am, you'll find then you won't smudge it as you're going down. But basically, if you do all your lines first, then write down your measurements, then they'll be absolutely perfect. But yeah, these are the pens. So tilt back up to me head. These are the pens that I use. They're so much better than a Sharpie. And the other big thing, when it comes to, you know, basically if you ever wanted to get rid of your pole, you could do it if you wanted to, or, you know, if the person buying it didn't want them on it, all you've got to do is just use a sponge, like a washing up sponge, you know, the one with the Brillo pad one side and the soft bit on the other side. But all I do is just, I'm mad for washing up, as mad as it sounds. I just use an old one. It gives me an excuse to be able to get a new washing up pad out. I know it's a bit of a weird hobby, isn't it? But ask Joe, I absolutely love washing up. Just use me old one, and you can literally just rub it like side to side. It's not going to damage your pole, and it'll come off dead easy. So basically, yeah, these are the pens that I've been using. Say Barry Robson put me onto them, and they're absolutely perfect. So I'll just show you the packet again. And then for anyone that wants them, you can see them. So it's just a paint marker. They're called acrylic paint markers. But the big thing when you buy them is just make sure that it's that 0.7 mil tip size. But yeah, if you do it like that, you'll never have a problem with it. So get rid of me bits and bobs and we can start. So our first one is from Terry Swan. Hope you're well, Paul. All good here, Terry, and I hope you are keeping well too. So this one's from Christopher Slater. You're right, Chris. Evening, Paul. Evening, Chris. Hope you're keeping well. And then this one's from Steve. Evening, Mr. P. Sound and picture both good at my end. Perfect, Steve. And I hope you are keeping well. So this one, I'll press the wrong one then. It went up. This one from Phil James, my mate that's the same height as me. Oi, oi, you're right, Phil. Hope you're keeping well. And he's put, oh, God, they're going a bit quick tonight. And he's put, you cut your grass yet? No, I haven't. It's too damp outside, Phil. But this is the first time we've ever actually had to cut grass. And the last time we done it, I say we done it, Joe done most of it. That's when I had the accident with my head, because she was out there and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make a start on my hair. And then she can come in and basically finish it off. And the grade thing snapped off. So I had a big zzz in my head. So no, next time I'll help her and then get her to do my hair properly. So yeah, bringing up the grass thing, make sure I ain't got a big lump missing out of my head again. So this one's from Paul. Evening, Paul. I hope you're keeping well. And then this one's from Steve. Nobody took up my offer. Guess nobody loves me. Oh, about your pens. Yeah. So if you want a pen or two, I'll put that one back up. Steve offered that he bought a pack of them. He's not going to use them all. Again, if you only want one pen, if you message Steve, he said he'd be happy to send them to anyone that wants one. So a lovely offer, and so really, really appreciate that, Steve. So yeah, for anyone that wants a pen, if you message Steve, he will be able to. Now you're going to regret this. You're going to get 400 messages, Steve, saying, you got that pen? And you'll be replying saying, I've run out of them. So this one's from Kevin. Evening, Paul. Evening, Kevin. Hope you're keeping well. Excuse my cough. So we're going to go on to our October winners. And again, if anyone's got any questions or whatever, you're more than welcome to put them up. Tomorrow, we're doing our live with Andy. So again, if you've got any questions you want to send over for that, please send them over. I've got a couple of questions written down. As you can see, I'm mad for a pad. So yeah, all my notes and bits and bobs up there. But anyway, we're not on to that. We're doing our October winners. So I always say this a little bit before, but we're never going to ask you for any pennies. There's always scammers and stuff about, but basically we're never going to be asking you for money, bank details, anything like that. You're just going to get an email from support@matchfocus.co.uk, and basically we only send them out to the winners. So you're not going to be getting, there's not going to be hundreds out there as such. To say, if you think you've won, your name gets called out, you'll get an email from us. If I've said this all backwards. So if you subscribe via the website, you will get an email from us. But if you hear me call out your name, and fingers crossed I do, and you subscribe via YouTube, you need to email us. So again, website wise, we can send you the email, but on YouTube, you need to email us. And it will be at that same address, support@matchfocus.co.uk. I always get that a little bit mixed up. So anyway, on to our prizes. So the weather's changed, so no more. I'm not going to grab it because it's down there. No more primer tracks, unfortunately. I love that for our summertime ground bait. I'm not going to say it doesn't work at this time of the year, but I just feel like these other mixes are better for this time of the year. So I've pick the ground baits to suit where I feel like we're going to be going cold. So each of our 10 winners are going to win the following. So the first one is a kilo of coarse carp. Again, you all know how mad I am about this ground bait. Absolutely love it for my method, feeding in the edge. Been doing a bit of sort of normal feeder fishing. It's not normal feeder fishing, but non-method feeder fishing at the glebe. And there you've got a use cage feeder because you've got a 20-inch hook length, and it's absolutely perfect for that as well. So a kilo of coarse carp for all of those that win that are doing non-F1 fishing, basically more carp fishing. So kilo of coarse carp for your method feeder, or if you go into the glebe with that open end feeder. Then a kilo of pole mix. Again, nice all-round mix. Personally, I'd probably save this more for the summer period. We've all got our favourite ground baits, and for me, I love this one when, you know, fishing for F1s, but more, to be honest, during the warmer months. These next two are the ones that I would tend to use on the pole. So fine expander. It's a nice, you know, all-round mix, to be honest, this time of the year. If you're fishing a lake and it's got a bit of colour in it, then, you know, I know some of them have. You go to, where is it now? Westwood Lakes. You know, it's always coloured there. So, again, you could probably still use pole mix there, or fine expander. But, yeah, for your coloured waters, I feel like fine expander. It's a lovely ground bait, to be honest. And, again, it's non-specific, so you can feed it for a little bit of everything. But the ground bait that I use basically probably from now until March time, I just try and keep everything simple. The fish, and we all know what it's like, it's hard enough to know where to fish. I just tend to keep this side of it really, really simple. So for me, from now until really start of March, maybe a bit of March, I'll just be using this wherever I go. So if I'm fishing for, say, carp on a bigger lake, if I was going to the Glebe and wanted to feed some ground bait, maybe loose feed some live maggots, I'm going to opt for this. All of me fishing a tunnel that I'm going to be doing, we're fishing the teams of 4 again this year. This is the ground bait that I'm going to use. And then likewise, if I was fishing for skimmers, roach, you know, going to Meadowlands, again, this is the ground bait I'm going to use. I don't mix it with anything. Again, I get that question quite a bit. I just use it as it is. And for me, it's just one less thing to think about. So what I'll probably do throughout these months is give away like 2 kilos of this ground bait. And I think you're going to know what it is. But it is our Skimmer's Dark ground bait. Again, it's lovely. It's nice. It's not like jet black in the colour. It's almost like a blacky, greeny sort of colour. And it's really, really nice. And I think the biggest thing for me is the softness. You can't overfeed it. Say, it's just, for me, it's one less thing to worry about. Wherever I go fishing, you know, I want to feed ground bait. This is the one that I'm going to be able to, you know, this is the one that I'm going to use during the colder months. So I'm going to give away 2 kilos of that probably every month now whilst it's going cold. And I'm looking forward to the days when we can get our, say, coarse primer tracks back out, start filling it in the edge. So going on to our winners. So our first winner is Ross Harold. Congratulations, Ross. Our second winner is Luke Simcox. Congratulations, Luke. Our third winner is Brian Eccles. Congratulations, Brian. Our fourth winner is Christopher Wharton. Congratulations, Christopher. Our fifth winner is Jack Armstrong. Congratulations, Jack. Our sixth winner is Graham Anderson. Congratulations, Graham. Our seventh winner is Gary Boydell. Congratulations, Gary. Our eighth winner is James Derbyshire. Congratulations, James. And our last 2 winners, I've got a feeling these are going to be YouTube winners. So our ninth winner is Tench. Congratulations, Tench. Absolutely love that name. And our 10th winner is PK Dot. So congratulations, PK Dot. So those are our 10 October winners. Again, talking through the bit that I spoke about at the start, we're never going to be asking you for any money. If you subscribe via the website and you think, yep, that was my name, you're going to get an email from us, and it'll be from support@matchfocus.co.uk. But I think if you're definitely Tench and PK, you're going to have subscribed via YouTube, and you need to email us at the same address to be able to claim your prize. So a massive well done to our October winners. If you didn't win, fingers crossed for next month. So I'm going to scroll back up through our messages again, quickly touching on me and Andy are live tomorrow. So any questions that you've got, just send them over and I'll make sure we get them answered. And the subject we're going to be talking about is, it's changed. Obviously, biggest thing in fishing is changed so quickly now. And the other thing was the conditions, and it was so noticeable. I've done it on our Match Focus Facebook page, I think I spoke about. So whilst I was doing my prep, I watched Andy's live match at Brady's that he fished. And it's amazing how when the cloud cover comes over, all of a sudden he's getting so many more bites. And when you're fishing, especially with me, because a lot of the time now I wear my glasses, not just, you know, being able to see the fish. Obviously in the summertime they help, but it makes a massive difference for me being able to actually see my pole flow. And at times you don't realize how bright it's got, or even, you know, how cloudy it's got. And it was amazing. I was sitting here, obviously tying my hooks up watching, and I was like, it was amazing the difference, you know, the conditions made. So that's definitely going to be our subject for this month. So we are going to go up to make sure I don't miss anything, and then where are we? And yeah, and then we're good to go. So takes me a bit of concentration, technology side of it, making sure I'm pressing the right things. So this one's from Mark Richardson. I'll have a pen. So again, if you message Steve McElroy, so I'll put his thing up here. Again, for anyone they want to screenshot it or whatever, you can send it, you know, send it to Steve and he will get you one sent out. So laughing faces. So Mark will have one. So this one's from Daniel. Evening, Paul. Evening, Daniel. Hope you're keeping well. And then this one is from Adam. Sent you a message on an easy way I found marking top kits. Saves holding a tape measure. So I'll have a look at that, and then I can pop it on basically on our next month's giveaway. So thank you ever so much for that, Adam. Really, really appreciate that, because it is a pain in the backside, but I can't fish without it now. Whenever, you know, I've got like new top kits without depth markers, I'm just lost. It's just like, I don't like it. Making massive difference for me. So this one's from Steve. Don't forget to like the video before you leave. Yes, if you could, that would be very, very nice. So thank you ever so much, Steve. So this one's from Darren. Needs some skimmers dark. 1,000,000%. I think so much of everything is confidence, and what I was touching on before is just, for me, it's one less thing to worry about. And you know, I'm not overly big on you've got to be using whatever, you know, not like that way inclined, but for me that ground bait is just perfect for this time of the year. Say it doesn't matter where I'm going, I ain't got to think, oh, should I use that or should I use this, or I just use that basically when I'm pole fishing. Say the only thing when I wouldn't use skimmers dark is if I wanted to fish ground bait around a method feeder. If I was fishing a carp, then I would just opt for our coarse carp. I'd always opt for that mix. But to be honest, as it's going colder, I would just use normal Screttins 2 mils. I always found, again, I don't do loads of it now, but I always think ground bait when you're fishing a carp, again, if I was fishing a method feeder for bream, I'd still opt for coarse carp. I think it's a lovely mix for that with dead maggots. But I think when you're fishing for carp, especially in the winter time, I just think 2 mil Screttins, carp pellets. So I've got some down here, starting to get prepared so I can talk you through, you know, make sure I've got everything, because sometimes what I call it might not be the name of what it actually is, but they're called carp pellets, but they're Screttins pellets. We've got 2 different types, so actually you've got 3 different types. So give me a second. So 3 different types, you know, of pellets. You've got carp pellets here, which I just call them Screttins because that's exactly what they are. And then you've got 2 mil Coppins pellets, which again are really, really sticky. To be honest, I don't use these. If the only time I'd ever look to use Coppins pellets is, no, I don't use them. So again, I was thinking if I was chucking a long way, but even then I wouldn't use them. I honestly think the fish, they prefer Screttins 2 mils rather than Coppins. I've never found them any good, to be honest. I just don't use them. I would just take more care when I was mixing my pellets to make sure they bind nicely if I was chucking a long way, because I was thinking, well, you know, maybe if I used a hybrid feeder, but I'd still just use Screttins. I just think they're the best pellets personally. And then the last one is your primer traps for 2.5 mils. But the one thing you'll be able to see, if you can on the camera, is they're much bigger in size. So I feel like these ones are lovely. And what's nice about these is they don't break down, so you can just chuck them in water, they fully expand, and they just stay as a micro pellet. But obviously, with these, it's like I've tried them, to be honest, on a method feeder, but I just still think you can't go wrong with screttings. It's that a bit like what I was just talking about with ground bait. So if I fed me ground bait and say I opted for pole mix, for argument's sake, and I fed it and the water was a bit clear and they didn't come over it, I'd be thinking, is it a bit too strong? Is it a bit too light? I'd be going home questioning myself, did I feed the right thing or not? That's why I just keep it simple, stupid, what my dad always used to say. With skimmers dark, I don't have that where it's like, if I drop my rig in, especially when you're fishing like a bigger lake, waiting for the fish to arrive on it, if I drop in and don't get a bite, I'm not questioning in my mind, have I fed the wrong mix? I just think, well, they haven't arrived yet. Confidence is so important, especially when it's going colder. And it's the same thing when it comes to like my method feeder fishing. It hasn't changed for God knows how long, because I'm confident in it. And when you chuck out and you sat waiting, and we all know what it's like carp fishing, sometimes you can be sat waiting for 5 hours and it's still not go round. And I've had plenty of matches where I've blanked, fishing a method feeder with a wafter for carp, and I chuck it out. But after the match, I don't think, did I feed the wrong pellets? I don't have that, because then the next week, and this is what you've got to be so careful of in the wintertime, is you could easily wind it in and think, I've done something wrong here. And basically, you haven't drawn on them. We all know what it's like. Location is the most important thing. And with what we do, your location is deemed by the number you pick out. But the very next week you could go, and I've made this mistake so many times in the past, is why I want to touch on it, where you're not on them. And when you do draw on them, you're that far off the beaten track that you go there and you're fishing. Like I've done it at Gold before, where I fished the cage feeder, with ground bait, and I'm fishing with live maggots where I've drawn the best carp area because I haven't drawn very well. So now I'm thinking, well, it's pointless fishing a method feeder, so I don't get a bite. But by the time you do get a chance and do draw on the fish, if you start over analysing everything, by the time you actually do draw on them, you're so far off the beaten path, which is basically just fish a method with a wafter, you're not going to go wrong with it, that when you do draw a good peg, you don't make the most of it because you're not fishing the right way. So again, that's why I just keep everything simple. So I would say when you're fishing with a method feeder in the wintertime, me personally, again, it's all personal preference, I just use screttings, pellets, by themselves, don't add anything to it. I think hook bait colour is really, really important, but just normal screttings, micro pellets, and again, you're not going to go too far wrong. When it comes to soaking them, I know a few of you would have seen this, but literally all I do is just cover them in water and drain the water off immediately. Pour the water in, pour the water out. And then as I'm going to use them, so look down, I've got temp, normally it's when you put your nets in, because normally it's 15 minutes for the all in when, you put your keep nets in. So I'll pop my keep nets in, I'll take out some micro pellets into a separate tub, and I'll add a splash of water to them and just stir them around. Then by the time, normally I've got my ground bait ready then to be able to feed on my pole line before the all in. I check my micros, are they still, a bit too dry, or have they tacked up really nicely? If they've tacked up really nicely, perfect, they're ready for my first cast. If not, I can just a tiny more bit of water and just turn them around. Then I can feed my pole line. By the time I want to chuck my feeder out, then I can just load my mold up, put them in, squeeze them, and they're going to bind really nicely. And I think that's probably, I would say, the biggest mistake I see a lot of people do when it comes to method feeder fishing. Is different with a hybrid feeder, but with their method feeder, the pellets are way too soft and they don't bind well enough. So yeah, they might hold on the feeder, but they're going to, withstand the cast, but also when it hits the water, they all just going to melt off. So again, just stick to that and you're not going to go too far wrong. I've been down this path way too many times trying to think, if I change something, is it going to make a difference? And unfortunately, more often than not, it's just the fact that you haven't drawn well enough. And it's hard to do once you've had a couple of bad matches and you've not been on the fish. But say I've been down there, the worst thing you can do is start overthinking it. because the reality is you just haven't drawn well enough. So hopefully that helps, especially for a few people. We all know what it's like about, say, winter carp fishing, winter fishing in general. So this from Steve. All of the mixing guides are over on the Blake's channel, described and presented by MASTERCLASS. Thank you ever so much, Steve. Yes, they all are. Again, when it comes to like, everyone's got their own unique way, the way they like preparing their bait. You know, I know Chris and Andy, they like measuring their, sorry, I've just got a bit of an itchy nose. They like to measure their ground bait and then measure the water and add it and mix it in one hit. Whereas I'm a bit more traditional, to be honest, where I just, more often than not, because again, I've done it a lot, I just add a bit of water, stir it around a bit more, and or sometimes not a bit more because I poured enough into it, and I spin it around. I think, yep, that's perfect, because I've done it loads. But if you're ever unsure, whatever ground bait you mix in, not just a Blake's ground bait, just add a little bit at a time. You know, you're never going to go wrong with that. I think the only ground bait that I would say where I think flooding your ground bait to start with is really important is when you, am I shaking the thing a little bit? This is where my new setup is. Normally I had a bench, so I might have to do that next time. Just put the camera on the bench, so when I'm wobbling the table, I'm not wobbling your, what is it, camera thing. Is coarse expander, because it's got sort of big particles of expander. That one you really need to over wet and let settle for it to basically make sure it all sinks. So say that's the only ground bait. I definitely add a lot of water at the start. So where are we? Carl got a right if you know you. So this one's from Darren. Hi Paul, all the way from Tunisia. Tried fishing off a boat yesterday and blanked. Laugh out loud. Need to tie some 11 16s and not £30. Well, best of luck, Darren, if you're back out fishing. Yeah, say that's the same thing really. You'll see fishing. Obviously, if you're not fishing where the fish are, it's no different really than our fishing. But yeah, the problem is, I think if you did tie an 11s to a 16s, it'd be like, that's the end of that, especially with the rods you'd be using. I don't think it'd last very long, but hope you're having a lovely time. So where are we? This one is from Julian. Evening, Paul. Evening, Julian. I hope you are keeping well. So this one's from Darren. Why do we tend to use lighter ground bait in the summer and darker in the winter rather than dark all of the time? So I think a big thing, see, it's a difficult one, because if you went on a canal and you were fishing for roach or little skimmers, and we all know that how good this bait is, and it's brilliant for dobbing, so I sort of lead it onto it there. But the reason I've mentioned a canal is normally they've got more predators in it. They're more predated than, say, our commercial venues that we fish, and not just obviously cormorants, pike, perch, and the water tends to be a hell of a lot clearer on the canal as well. But the best bait to catch silverfish is bread, and it's white. It's the complete opposite of what you would think would be the best bait, but they just love eating it. Obviously, you know, people feeding the ducks, they're used to eating it. It's food to them, and you will still catch on it. But I think it's more the fish settling over bait. So I always think with bread, you know, it's very instant. You feed it, you go and you catch a few. So you could be of two trains of thought here. You know, again, when I was going to Gold a lot in the past, I've caught so many fish when Paul first done. So before we ever had Skimmers Dark, Paul done the first course mix, which was course expander, and I've caught loads of skimmers there, and it's a really clear commercial, Gold is, where, you know, say you're catching these big wary carp, big skimmers, again, very, very clear. And I used to feed that course expander with some micros in it and loose feed maggots, and I caught loads of fish. What I'm going to say is past it, but I never caught on my bait. So it's almost like they come, they know it's there. Do they just loiter around it and wait for, you know, it all to go dark and then come over the bait and eat? Because again, the way we used to do our match reports, now we do most of them live, where I'm filming bits and bobs whilst we're fishing. But the amount of times that, you know, I'd fish Saturday and Sunday at Gold, and, you don't get a bite on the pole, you get an odd bite just past it. I'd go back to that peg the following day, and the amount of times, again, because I went there a hell of a lot, you never see him pimp on your bait. It just doesn't happen. You might see an odd fish, more carp, but the amount of times where I might have even fed it and not had a single bite, you know, on the match. And I get there the next day, arrive to the peg, because that was our peg that we drew. I'm going to do our match report on that peg, and they're pimping where I fed my bait. So 1,000,000% they come in and settle on it overnight, and maybe just as it's getting light, you know, because I always used to get there nice and early because I wanted to try and sit on the peg before a pleasure angler got it, basically. And again, a lot of the time, Will and John would just save me the peg, but I always want to get there early, again, to sort of look around. And it was amazing the amount of times when I got to my peg in the morning, there's pimps coming up, and you just think, that's another thing. But anyway, back onto your question. Is it in our head? Is it not in our head? It is such a difficult question, but I just feel once you've used something and you've got confidence in it, I feel like, again, analysing it, how much do you analyse it? I know I've fed course expander and caught a load of fish. I know I've also fed that ground bait and not had a bite on it, because obviously the fish are not there when they're not feeding, whatever it is, especially how cold it goes. But at Gold especially, I only ever caught my fish past my bait. I never, not skimmers, you'd catch them past your bait, so fishing pole past where you fed, or a waggler even further past it. But what was really interesting, this is what I want to touch on, was I've had times where, and again, most of the time there, you only ever get bites past your bait. I'm thinking, what's the point of even feeding the ground bait if they don't come in? And I've gone there and just fed live maggots, so loose fed live maggots without feeding any ground bait on a waggler and a pole, and it's just rubbish. You don't get any bites. It's like you have to feed that ground bait, and they come near it, they just don't sit over it. Again, if I was going there this year, again, having used like Skimmer's Dark now, would I get more bites on my bait, you know, or closer to my bait? Was the reason I caught them so far past my bait because of what I fed. But I just feel like when the water's coloured and they're confident, the biggest thing is with a lighter colour ground bait, and I always use white maggots when it's coloured because I'm adamant it makes a massive difference, and red maggots when it's clear, not because I don't catch on white maggots, but I've just found that I tend to foul hook more fish when I'm fishing on the bottom with white maggots. So maybe the colour side of it, that's why you foul hook more on it. But again, with the darker ground bait, I just feel that the fish, I think, like, we don't get predated, so a fish probably going to have more confidence coming over a darker background that's closer, that's blending into the bottom, to be able to swim over it. Whereas if it's bright and light, are they going to want to actually swim over it? But then again, now thinking back to all of the days, which again was a hell of a long time ago now, when I used to fish bloodworm all of the time, we used to fish basically double lean, which the lake lean was the lightest color. Again, it's like fine expander the way, you know, you mixed it up, and you fed a lot of that with your bloodworm and joker in it, and you caught a load of silverfish. So it's a difficult one, you know, Darren, I'll be honest. But I think, again, fishing, everything's confident, and especially at this time of the year, one of the most important things is being confident in what you're feeding. And once you've had a good result and a few good results, that builds confidence on it. And again, it's that in the summertime, you could feed Skimmer's Dark and catch a load of fish in the edge on it. But if you picked a different mix, you might catch more on it. You might foul hook less on it. I just feel like the nice thing of why I like using Skimmer's Dark, again, thinking about how the fish feed and how slow they are, how clear the water is, the biggest thing for me of why I opt for that mix is not as much, part of it's the color, but a big part of it is the clouding effect. So again, when thinking about all of the time when I used to use lake and lean, sorry, not lake lean and grey lean with joker in it, even though the color seems all wrong, because it's so soft and cloudy, when one fish comes in and eats some of the joker, it's going to puff up. I've got something in my mouth there. So yeah, it's going to puff up, and then that attraction of one fish feeding, and it, because this is how it seemed to work. You drop in, you don't get a bite, so you go for a walk. Drop back in, you don't get a bite, and then you drop your rig in, and sometimes you're waiting and you see like an odd fish get caught, and you might be fishing for carp, and say going for a walk more where it was a silverfish only match, or if it was frozen. But you see someone catch a roach and you think, oh, you know, you might be fishing for carp. You drop in and you wait, and it goes under and you catch your first roach. And the amount of times you shit back out, drop in, and it was like your float was overshot. It just sit there, trim up, and just go straight under. You catch one, you catch one, you catch one, you catch one. And it almost seems like when that first fish comes in and starts feeding, they just all pile in en masse. They're almost all waiting, like, who's going first? Who's going first? And then when one goes and it puffs up, and I think this is the biggest thing about that, is making it attractive to the fish to feed there. As soon as one comes in and it puffs up, then they all come in, because it's giving them confidence to be able to feed again. And that's why when that light drops, it's even more confidence for the fish to be able to feed. So for me, with Sabre, that skimmer's dark, one thing is, I think the colour, it definitely can't help. It definitely can't hurt. Whereas if I fed a lighter mix and I didn't catch, I'd be more worried that I fed something that was too light, was too bright on the bottom. But what's really important for me is how soft the mix is. And I think this is the bit that's really important, is say when that first fish comes and feeds, this is why, like with primer tracks, coarse carp, they're heavier mixes. So in the summertime, when it's not a problem of getting the fish in the edge, you know, or in shallow water, the problem is not foul hooking them and getting too many fish come in your peg. So having something where it comes in, it puffs up a bit, but it's more that it comes up and it goes back down. Whereas, again, pole mix is a really cloudy mix, I'm going to say. So more so when I'm fishing for F1s, that a lot of the time, this where, again, going on to marking your top kits, you can plumb up in the edge, and you only really get this when you're doing it all of the time. You can plumb up and say you're looking for 16-inch, and that's the perfect depth. When you've got the perfect depth, more often than not, the best way to be able to just catch them is just feeding micro pellets, you know, with an expander on the hook. Just feed that, because you're in the right depth. The fish will come in, they're easier to catch because it's not clouding up everywhere. And again, what you're feeding is just food for them. But when they come in and they're eating and it comes up, it goes back down again. So the fish move around slower, purely because there's just particles in the peg, and you don't have the problem of having too many fish in your peg. But it's when you plumb up and it's like 12-inch and you think, it don't seem a lot, only 4-inch. But you feed micro pellets and you catch one, but it's like they come in and it's like, no, I don't like it. They come in, and then this when you have it, when basically they're almost just swimming around your float and you can't catch them, because you see one come in and you think, well, there's fish coming in my peg, but they're not tailing up, they're not upending and staying and eating. They might come in, eat a bit, and then they're gone. Well, if it's eating for like a second or 2 seconds, the chance of it sucking your hook bait in is slim. But in 16-inch, if it tails up and it's eating there for 6-7 seconds, you've got so much of a better chance of that fish basically sucking your expander in, bite, hook it. So in that situation, then you need to feed ground bait. And what the ground bait does is, and you can try this for yourself, it's one thing I do when I'm coaching, is you can get 300 ml ground bait and a 3-pint bait box full up with water. Pot that 300 ml ground bait in a 3-pint bait box and stir it around with your fingers. Now, you're never going to have that ratio of ground bait to water in any peg that you ever fish. And then feel with your fingers like you was trying to eat something. You can feel some, you know, there's definitely some stuff on the bottom, but it's like soupy mush. There's not a lot, and you definitely can't feel 300 ml. Do the same again with a 3-pint bait box, 300 ml of ground bait, but like a medium pot of just soaked micro pellets. Put them micro pellets in that 300 ml, stir it around, do the same thing, pour it in, you know, a bait box with 3 pints of water, stir it around and feel with your fingers, and you can feel every single micro in that bait box, and the difference of just like a medium pot of micros, how it changes it. And I'm sure that's the biggest thing with the fish, but I feel like I've gone off track a little bit. So when it's too shallow, the ground bait, what you need it for is not to feed the fish, it's to attract them. So you feed, when one comes in, it turns, it's clouding the peg up and it's sort of lingering in the water. Then when the next one comes in, they've got more confidence because they can't see a lot, you know, it's clouding up. So then using your ground bait with your micro pellets added to it of feeding, that's when they tail up a lot slower. But the easiest way to catch them more often than not is when you just feed pellets. And say that's one of the biggest things why I feel like our coarse ground baits are so good, is when you're fishing for carp, it's more of a volume thing than a bait thing at times. So you could feed, let's just say you could feed 100 millimicros. No, let's go smaller. So say you could feed a large pot of ground bait, feed it, nothing comes in. You could feed a large pole mounted pot of micro pellets, nothing comes in. You feed 200 mil and now all of a sudden it comes in. So the nice thing with our coarse mixes is you want that balance of ground bait, because a lot of the time when you're fishing for carp, ground bait just gets them in. If you go to a mega venue, just feed micros and they come in on it, they're the easiest fish in the world to catch. They're normally harder to be able to catch on ground bait. But sometimes you have to feed ground bait again to get the fish to come in and sort of cloud up. But with them coarse mixes, you've got that attraction of the finer particle. It's not as puffy, so when it comes up, it does go back down a lot quicker. But the biggest thing is you've got them food elements in there. The longer they're tailing up and eating where your rig is, the easier it is to catch and the better, you know, the one, you've got less chance of foul looking at it, but the biggest thing is you've just got more chance of that fish sucking in your hook bait, and then you get a clean bite and hook it. So bit of a long answer, but hopefully, Darren, that explained a little bit about it. So this one is from Ian. Hi, Paul. What yellow paint do you use on your bristles? So I've got it here. This is the paint that I've used for a long time. So yellow and red sensors paint. When it comes to like you want a blacked out fly, I don't use paint. I just use like a Sharpie marker for my bristles when it comes to painting them. What I will say though is your paint, it glows so much better when you're using a solid bristle float in rather than a hollow bristle float. So you'll know so let me see. So these are a solid bristled maggies that I like using. So they're 1.5 mil solid tip RW maggies, and I'll try and see if I can show you. So there's probably the best one. This float here is the one that's been painted, so it's more of a reddy color, and this one here is an orange one which hasn't been painted. And the biggest thing that I find by painting them is when I'm using my glasses. So if you can get a set of light lens glasses, don't know if these are the ones, like a yellow lens is the one that you're after. These are my blue ones, I think. I don't know if these ones are my copper ones or not. The other ones are in my carrier, but yeah, they're a copper one. Are they my copper ones? No, they're my normal coloured ones. So I want to see if I can show you. Can you see what I mean? Like, see the yellowy sort of tint in them? And I don't even know if we're going to be able to do this or not. Let's try anyway. Now you're wearing glasses via a computer. So let me put that over. I don't know if you can see it any better, actually. No, they both look very, very similar on them. It doesn't work as well when you do looking it through that. But when I look through, obviously wearing my glasses, a lot of the time when it's the background that you're fishing, especially on a canalised lake where you've got all of like everything sort of dying, it's all like browny, greeny, you know, real dingy sort of colours. The light's really low as well, the sunlight. But I just find by painting them and using my glasses, my float bristle shows up so much. And it's well worth what you've said there, Ian, as well, is that yellow makes a massive difference. It was funny because all the years when I fished with Penwright, and very good mate of mine, when we got pole floats, I'd have all the red ones and Pem would sort of have the 2 yellow ones because he always see yellow better than me. And I've never been, in the past, to be honest, I've only ever used red or black. That's just what I thought I see best. But since I've started to use yellow, especially on the far banks of Canal Eyes Lakes, you think that a red would stand out better against all of because a lot of it is sort of yellowy, greeny, browny. But a yellow tip float painted, the difference for me, and I think everyone's eyesight slightly different, but using, say, yellow lens glasses, they're called like low light glasses, and a yellow tip float, the difference is like you can't not see it, if that makes sense. So if anyone's never done that and you're doing that style of fishing, it's definitely worth having a go, especially if you're struggling to see. And again, touching on the flows, using a 1.5mm solid bristle rather than hollow tip. In the past, your solid bristles, they always used to be really, really thin. So a lot of people, you think wintertime, the fish are not feeding as well, you want a more sensitive flow. And I felt like I made this mistake a lot in the past, where I try and use a too thin a flow, and I'm forever looking, it's like I can't even see it, so then you take a shot off to make it a bit more buoyant, and before you know it, you need a bit of float sticking out just so you can see it. But by using a 1.5mm solid bristle, you can still dot it down because you've got still nice surface area to be able to see. But the biggest thing is you can actually see it. But because the tip's solid plastic rather than hollow, you get so much more of a melty bite rather than a little bump. You just see it better basically using a solid bristle float. So again, if anyone struggles with that, definitely give them a go. So make a massive difference. But yeah, that's the paint that I use here. So this one's from Steve. Would you ever add 2 of the mixes together to tailor it to a venue, conditions, species? No, I'll be honest, Steve, I don't. I know, again, it's a confidence thing, but when I go, the only time I would ever do that, and this is 100% the truthful answer, is so when we go to the Glebe, again, especially when it's warm, I want coarse carp personally when I'm fishing that open end feeder, because it just works really nicely. I can mix it on the dry side, and it just, because there you get most of your bites, like as you would have seen, like the bow of your line, and as it's tightening up, it's on, because you've got to use such a long hook length. So I use that, mix it on the dry side, because what I want is when I hook a fish to make sure that basically all my bait comes out. But I want to use my coarse primer, and the reason I'm pointing there is because I've got like my little boxes of bait to make sure that I can cover it for us. I want to use my coarse primer tracks for when I'm fishing in the edge, because that's a better mix for me when I'm fishing in the edge. But I like coarse carp. I think that's a better mix for me when I'm fishing a method or say that cage feeder. The only time I add them together is to turf it in the edge. That's it. So again, if I was going to tunnel, I use, say summertime, I'm going to use pole mix. The only thing I'll add to it, all my ground baits, is micro pellets or, dead maggots or casts or worms. But ground bait wise, I'll just use one. That's how simple I keep it. Say the big thing, to be honest, for us at Blake's is we want to make a mix that is made for that job. So again, if I was fishing, slop in the summer for F1s, I'm just going to use fine expander. Don't add a bit of pole mix or a bit of this to it or a bit of that to it. I just think if you've got to do that, the ground bait ain't right, as daft as it sounds. So for me, no, I don't mix any ground baits together. They're just best the way they are, basically. But yeah, it's a great question. But say it depends. It's a confidence thing, I think, a lot of it. And I think the other big thing that I forget, to be honest, is obviously I know how the mixes are made and I know everything that's in the mix. So I'd love to be able to tell you, but obviously I get shot from Blake, so I can't do that. But no, basically they're all made for a specific purpose. You say it's just picking the right ground bait for the right situation. And say for me, this is why when I speak about it, all these colder months, I'm just going to use Skimmer's Dark. That's it. I don't think, unless I go to the glebe, but even if I go to the glebe, I'm not going to use coarse carp anymore. I just use Scratton's micro pellets. No, that's it. That's all I'm going to use. And then summertime, if I was going to tunnel, I'd use pole mix. I'm either going to use Skimmer's Dark or pole mix. That's it. If I'm fishing a method feeder or an open end feeder, I use coarse carp. It was fishing for silvers on a cage feeder, I'd use Skimmer's Dark. And then in the edge, I use coarse primer tracks. If I was pace fishing, I don't do a lot of it. I put double worm on. No, I'm only joking. Then I would, again, the people that do it that I know that go to Willingshurst a lot, like they love coarse carp for it and they love coarse primer tracks for it. So again, I'd probably just use one of those mixes. The only time I ever use fine expander now is if I was slop shallow fishing. I could just use pole mix if I wanted to, but I just feel like that fine expander is better than pole mix for fishing slop shallow. For F1s, you know, paste and slop shallow, then I'd use fine expander. What other ground baits have I got? Coarse expander I used to use, but now I'd just use Skimmer's Dark. Again, before Skimmer's Dark, if I was going to tunnel in the winter, I'd use fine expander, whereas now I just use Skimmer's Dark. I'd just keep it so simple. And yeah, that's sort of my answer. So, but again, the big thing is confidence. You know, it's so important to be confident in what you're using. So that's how I look at it. Oh, perfect. So this one's from Carl. I have so much confidence with Blake's, and say that's the most important thing is being confident in what you're using. So this one's from David. Hi, Paul. Hi, David. Hope you're keeping well. So when fishing hard pellets at this time of the year, is it worth soaking for a short while? Again, it's very much venue dependent. If I was fishing for carp, then no, I don't think I would. I'm just trying to think where I'd fish hard pellets at this time of the year. Saying that, I was speaking to Dan, who goes to the Oaks. He was Oaks SA on Cedar. And he was saying it's very shallow. Like listening, it's so nice to listen when people go to different venues. He was saying it's like 2.5, 3 foot, 3 and a bit foot max. Fishing for big, wily old F1s that have been in there a long time, been caught a lot, you know, massive fish. And straight away I'm thinking, yeah, maggots, micros and expanders. And he's like, yeah, but hard pellets are better. Like literally tapping in 3 or 4 hard pellets. You feed micros and just foul look them. It's like every venue is unique. So again, you're asking my opinion. Where I go, I feel like micros and expanders are so much better. And if I was looking, let's just say if I was going to the glebe for argument's sake, where would I fish hard pellets there now? No, I'd fish Skimmer's Dark and loose feed live red maggots. Personally, that's how I would fish, because I just feel like it's non-selective. And I've caught bigger weights of carp, as mad as it sounds, fishing for silverfish than going and fishing for carp. The only time you can't fish like that is when there's a load of little blips. But then maybe feeding casters will be better. But I don't feel like you have as many problems with little tinies. What I'm going to say, David, is trial and error. If you can use your own pellets, though, and I want to touch on this, if you can go somewhere, or if you're fishing somewhere that is not fishery pellets only, then have a go fishing and feeding 4mm expanders, because that can be unbelievable. So they're pellets, you know, you're feeding less of them, but the biggest thing is they're all soft. Years ago, me and Pem, again, we used to, the problem is you can't do it now. You can do it with a 4mm primer tracks pellets, where you can put them in water and basically you can hook them. But you used to be able to do the same thing with like a Scratton's 4mm. So we used to get like a big bloodworm tray or a big joker tray, cat litter tray, 1 layer of Scratton's 4mm, just cover them in water. It was best done 2 days before you wanted to go fishing. Just cover them in water and leave them. Don't touch them. That was the most important thing, because what happens is They soak up the water and they go really soft, and you wouldn't be able to hook them. But I'd literally soak them up overnight, don't touch them and think, oh, I've added too much water, I've added not enough. One layer of pellets, just cover them in water and leave them. And then in the morning, they'll be stuck to the tray. But rather than touching them, just bang the tray a lot and just like shake it around so they all become loose, and then leave them. And they almost get a skin on them. They almost go harder again. And they were the perfect pellets. And you could, you get an odd-un that broke up, and an odd-un as you're shipping out, you couldn't ship out like a Luno with them. That would break up, and an odd-un that had come off when you were shipping out. It's like, oh, I've got to ship back in. But the difference they made of feeding and having exactly the same hook bait as what you were feeding, the difference it made was unbelievable. And I think the other thing that helped was they're obviously a lot heavier than an expander, so the bite was just so much nicer because your hook bait was heavier. But if you're going, say, to a venue where you can, like Barston's a prime example, Barbie Banks would be a prime example, where you don't have to use fishery pellets, then try doing some 4 mil expanders and actually feeding them and putting them on the hook, because that can make a massive difference. Like making sure, basically if you want a softer bait, try doing that. I don't do a lot of hard pellet fishing at this time of the year, and I honestly wouldn't want to say it could be better soaking, it could be better leaving them hard. That's something that you definitely have to try and just find out what works best for you. So this one's from Darren. Thanks for the info. I'll take you down to the bank soon, pal. Tight lines, brother. Tight lines as well, Darren. Absolutely love it there. Such a nice venue. And again, like this, the people there are just lovely. And you just have a mint day. Say it's higgledy-piggledy as well. It's just such a lovely place. I really, really enjoy going there. So our next one is from Scott. Evening, bud. Hope you are well. Very good, Scott. Hope you are keeping well as well. So I can't recommend the low light glass enough this time of the year, especially. Yet they make a massive difference. I remember you'd be able to see it actually on our channel that for a long time, I knew that Darren Cox wore Costas, and I knew that Andy Powers wore them a lot. And I was always under the illusion of it was all about polarized glasses, was all about being able to spot the fish, and using polarized glasses 1,000,000% make it 1,000 times easier to be able to see the fish. But the biggest thing that I learned from using them, for me, for my eyesight, is how much clearer I can see my pole flow. So a lot of people might look at me, middle of just, well, whenever I go fishing, but especially like from now moving on through till like March time, where I say, I've got to put my goggles on to be able to see. It's not that they're prescription. My eyesight, I think, is quite good, touch wood, but I cannot see my pole flow, especially when it's dotted down, without them. And I'm like that, I'm squinting, and I used to get such bad headaches. Some of it is dehydration, not drinking enough water, 1,000,000%. But in the summertime, I just get such bad headaches. And the biggest thing is I was squinting all of the time. Whereas when you wear, it's not just the fact that they're polarized, it's making sure that they're the right colored lens. So a copper lens, and the one that I showed you, or did I show you? Which I've never used before, to be honest, until I signed for Shimano, were these blue lens ones. And you'll see me wear those a lot in the summertime. They're just really, really nice. Again, like that copper blue lens. The darker sort of lenses, when the light, the sunlight's really high, so all your summertime months, again, you can spot the fish, but you can see your float just so much clearer. But in the winter time, when it's low light, you definitely want to opt for a yellow lens. And again, what Scott's said there, once you've had them, you think, how did I ever fish without them? Now I don't like the rain because stuff gets wet, especially when we're filming, and I'm trying to keep track of everything. And you know what I'm like with my live maggers, and everything's wriggling everywhere. But the nightmare thing is, like, your glasses get wet and it's like you're forever, and then you smudging them. But yeah, I get it, 100% agree with what Scott's wrote there. if you've not tried them, give them a go and you'll be amazed the difference they make. So this one is from Daniel. Hi, Paul. What? Hope you're keeping well, Daniel, by the way. What floats do you use for silverfish fishing at Meadowlands? So give me 2 seconds because I want to show you this. I think it's, quite important. So I thought I was, I bumped you again. So I thought I was prepared, but in the other room, I've got like all my rigs that are tied up that I haven't used or I'm not going to use. So if you give me a sec, I'll be able to show you. This is the problem when you've got too many bloody pole rigs. I know there's going to be a few comments. Don't worry, mate. I'll take them off your hands. So not those. They're the ones there. So here they are. These are the ones that personally I like to use. So these ones are a Gloucester, perfect Gloucester flow with a wire stem. So again, they're a solid plastic bristle. So you'll be able to see there, and I've just given them all a coat of that Sensors paint. So wire stem that you can see, and then there, but I think you really struggle to get them now. One thing you'll notice as well, if you can you see that bit of rubber if I move the pole float? So if I put it by the wall, can you see that bottom rubber's not attached? And I do this with all of my pole floats, or any pole rig. So on the stem of the float, you'll be able to see, I don't want to bend the float too much, but you'll be able to see I've got basically the 2 rubbers, top and middle, but the bottom one is left off. And that way, especially when you're using a wire stem float, you can slide it up the line and you never got to worry about damaging, especially when you're using a wire stem. But I do it with my carbon ones as well. One, you're never going to damage your pole float. Also, you're not going to damage your main line. And then once I plumbed up and I'm sort of near enough where I want to be, then I put my bottom rubber on. And that way, no damage to your line. Biggest thing, though, as well, is obviously no damage to your pole float, especially when you're using, say, wire stem floats. But I love them floats when I fish in deep water. The biggest thing with Meadowlands is because it's such a big open water lake, you get that water movement on it. And personally, I just find like wire, I know carbon's a lot nicer to use, but I just think when I'm fishing that type of venue, you get a 3 mile an hour wind and it's like the water's moving around. And I just find that type of flow for me is absolutely perfect. Say the only downside is you can't get them anymore. But I know that Guru have brought one out. And again, it's a balsa bodied float, solid plastic bristle and a wire stem, and they do them in a carbon. And I've got a feeling they're called Skimmer. They might be, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that Guru have brought out those. So if you're struggling to get, like a perfect Gloucester float, they are a good float as well. And then the only other float that I would use is here. So these are me carbon chimps. So carbon stem flow. Biggest thing though is they've got a 1.5 mil solid bristle on it. So again, give them a paint of that Sensors paint. You can see with that yellow, do you see what I mean? Like how much it glows up. It's unbelievable. And these are the floats that I'd look if I was fishing with pellets, just because it's got a bit of a thicker tip. Just dot my float down nicely. You're still going to be able to see plenty of it if I put it in front of my head, or even my tops, even better. You're still going to be able to see plenty of it. And I think those say perfect when I'm fishing with pellets. The reason, some people might be looking and thinking, well, yeah, but that's 2 different types of pole flow. If I was going to, say, Meadowlands and it was windy, then I wouldn't be fishing with pellets because it's going to be towing so much. So then I'm going to opt for my wire Gloucester, a bit more stable, but I'm probably be better off fishing other baits where I can put a bit of line on the bottom. But if I was going there and it was forecast to be calm, you know, and pellets are important, then I can use a carbon stem flow because I haven't really got to worry about the toe as much. But I would say if I was to pick one, and that's the only one that I could use, then 1,000,000% I'd opt for my Gloucester, because it's just all round. You know, you're never going to get there and have it towing and moving around. And that's to say the only downside about using a carbon stem flow. Carbon's lovely when the conditions are brilliant, but when you're starting to fish in that real deep water, I just don't think you can go wrong with a wire stem flow. So that's why I wanted to run and show you those, because I haven't got any in my boxes behind me, Daniel. But yeah, that's what I would use. Say the only thing I know you're going to struggle with, because I've struggled, which is, you'll be able to see there's one missing, because again the wire is broken. Is a 0.75 in a yellow bristle flow. But I just can't find any anywhere. So those are the ones that I'm going to have a look at. But say I know that they're basically identical to a Gloucester. So those are the ones that I would look at. Daniel, I'm just not 100% sure what they're called. But again, if you messaged Andy or Matt Godfrey, they'd definitely be able to tell you the what the actual flow is called. So this one is from Julian. Blake's do coarse carp and edge mix. What's the intended difference? So again, all of the bait is made for what the angler wanted. So Chris at the Oaks, that was his ground bait. So the edge mix come out before coarse carp, and that mix was the one that he wanted. And the biggest thing with the edge mix is it's got krill in it, which is very, very expensive, but it's that sort of orangey type of color. And that was the mix that Chris designed, obviously for where he's going. And that's what he wanted for fishing in the edge. It was when Paul brought out coarse expander. And again, at the time where I was going, it was like, I wanted that sort of micro mixed ground bait, and that's why basically we ended up making coarse carp, say a method feeder, and fishing in the edge. So that turned out to be basically the mix that I like using. But that's the real difference, is obviously different pellets in it. For one, coarse carp is coarse, edge mix is coarse, but it's not nowhere near as coarse as coarse carp. But the biggest real difference is it's got krill in it, whereas coarse carp doesn't have any of that in it. So that's what I would say, Julian. And then we've got a couple more, and then I can love you and leave you and let you enjoy, say, the rest of your evening. So this one's from Silver King. All the best for the winter, Paul. Ross McCann here. All the best, Ross. It was nice to watch you on the last day of the Drennan. You give our boys and girls something to actually watch, because they weren't watching me catch an awful lot that day, were they? But yeah, hope you're keeping well, Ross. And say, I'm sure I'm going to see you at Tunnel at some point. So this one's from Ben. Evening, Paul. Hope you're well, mate. All good here, Ben. Hope you are keeping well too. And say, I'm sure I'll be seeing you at Tunnel at some point when it's freezing cold. This one's from Peter. Hi, Peter. Hope you're keeping well. Hi, Paul. Finding my 4mm hard pellets are falling apart when soaking to use on the hook. Soaking is water, fridge, airtight. Any ideas of how to get them to soak right? So again, this is really what I was just touching on. You used to be able to do that with like a Scretton's 4mm. It's so difficult to be able to get them to do it now. The only pellets that I'm going to say you can soak to be able to hook are the Prima Trax 4mm. Well, actually, this is why I brought it as well. Is that I call everything a 2 and a 4. So the carp pellets are the Screttons are a 2mm. That's what they're actually called. The Coppins are a 2mm. The Prima Trax, they've got to make it awkward. They're a 2.5mm. And again, the 4mm that I say is a 4mm is actually a 4.5mm. But these pellets, even if you wanted to maybe soak, say, some Screttons up, again, if it's fishery pellets, soak some Screttons up to be able to feed. But if you just get some primer tracks, say the 4.5mm ones, and all I do, I know Joe done a brilliant video on it, and again, everyone's got their own way of preparing their bait, what they do like doing, what they don't like doing. But again, if you have a look at that, it's on his match fishing films, it's called, Peter. You'll be able to see Joe using the Primer Tracks pellets and how much he raves about. But these ones you can actually hook. But the way I prepare them is I literally get some water that's been in the fridge. So it depends on how good the boss is to you, or if you've got a bait fridge. But the way that I would personally do it is I just get a bait box and put, you know, half fill it with water, because I'm not going to use loads, because I only obviously want a few for the hook. So because my boss is very, very nice to me, and I've got a bait fridge, I ain't really got to worry about it. But you could do it in a Tupperware if you wanted to, rather than putting your dirty bait box in the fridge. Get yourself a clean Tupperware box, a brand new one, when you're going shopping, and just half fill it with water. Put it in the fridge so the water's cold. I just think cold water, whenever you're preparing any pellets, be it your expanders or your feed pellets, is definitely better than sort of warmish water, because that definitely speeds up the breakdown of the pellets. And then I just get however many 4.5mm Primer Tracks pellets, not 4mm, put them in the water, done, leave them. Don't worry about just covering them with water gently, you know, how much and all that. I just chuck them in, done. Leave them in the fridge, and then the next day they swell up and you'll be able to hook them. They are not like hooking an expander though. You can't just roll it on and ship out and not worry about them coming off. You're going to get an odd one that as you roll round it's going to break. That's, say, the nature of you're trying to make a different type of pellet that you can put on the hook. So you have got to be a little bit careful with them. But that's the way that I prepare my pellets, and then you can hook them. If, again, every batch of pellets is slightly different. So if you're finding that a few of them are splitting, then again, do it in a shallow tray, and maybe do, you know, the same pellets in 2 different ways. And you don't need millions because they're only for the hook. Put a few pellets, make sure they're, you know, not sitting on top of each other. 1 layer of pellets, just cover them in water, and then leave them in the fridge. But if they're still too hard, this is where you need to probably add a little bit more water, say next time you do it. But have a go with those ones, say, Peter, the 4.5mm Primer Tracks, and just soak them up and see if they're any better. But yeah, that's the only, say, downside with your 4mm Stratons. You're going to get them where they're breaking up. It's nothing that you're doing wrong. It's just the nature of the pellets, unfortunately. So our last question, and then I'll go and get some food. So 1 second. Can literally just 1 second. Just need to have a tiddle real quick. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I was absolutely dying. Drunk way too much before I come on. And otherwise, I was going to wet my knickers. So, not in a good way. Definitely not in a good way. That feels better. So, this one's from Tony. Hi, Paul. Hi, Tony. I hope you're keeping well. So, when dobbing the track at 6 foot deep with corn maggot bread, what size and type of flow and hook length and breaking strain for F1 and carp, snake lake, snake, carp, snake, snake lakes? What do you find is the best way to dob on snake lakes? Dob into the bottom of the track. How over depth? Okay, let me read this again. Harper when dobbing the track. 6 foot deep. So the biggest thing, Tony, talking about dobbing, I'm just going to move this down a bit, just so you can see us. Biggest thing I would say when you're dobbing is you need to be able to know the fish are there. That's the most important thing. So you might find that on the venue you're going to, it'll be exactly the same at Tunnel this winter, is where the fish ball up, where they're happiest sitting, where they're all going to sort of clump together. Those anglers will catch dobbing bread, because the fish are basically, they're just sat off bottom in a huddle, freezing cold, don't really want to move. They're not interested in following any bait down. They're definitely not looking at moving to be able to go and eat. They're just sat there sort of waiting, I think, a lot of the time until they're, again, because they're cold-blooded. Remember, we've come from a nice warm house, nice warm bed, a nice warm car or van. We've got nice warm clothes on. You know, if we're getting cold, you can always warm up. Whereas with them poor buggers, I'm going to say, been sat out in that all night, you know, the freezing cold water, they're just like waiting. And I think until they can basically move around to be able to start, one, eating, but also they need to be able to digest. So I say they got no interest in eating. And the biggest thing is if you could, I think if you could see under the, like looking at a lake and there was no water in it, you see a ball of fish there, you know, a few over there, a few here, a few, and you just see that they're all sort of clumped up together, almost like sheep in a field. You know, as mad as it is, they've got all this field, but they're all over there, or they're all over there. Maybe it's just out of the wind or safety in numbers again, but they all huddle together. Those, the anglers that are on those pegs, they might catch dobbing because, say, the fish they don't want to eat, so flicking a bait near them as it's going past, they might eat it, but they're not on the bottom. This is the biggest thing that I want to say. One, they're not all balled up in every peg, so you could draw a peg and there is no ball of fish, so you're not going to get a bite dobbing, for one. Secondly, so location's massive. Secondly, they're not on the bottom, because even though it's 6 foot deep, it could be 20 foot, it doesn't matter how deep it is. Whenever you look at fish in their natural state, being a pond, they're never on the bottom. You know, even if it's that deep, they're not all lying on the bottom. I think big carp, when they go really dormant, I think that's different. They might lie in the sill, you know, almost like hibernating basically for the winter time. I'm sure like massive carp do that, and they're all like lying like the softest, siltiest, muddiest bit, you know, where it's probably sheltered and they're just lying there. They've got no interest in moving until it warms up. But I feel like on a commercial venue, they say huddle together. And again, when you look at fish in a pond that's been outside, they're all off bottom and they're all sort of, you know, huddled together, but they're not on the bottom. That's the biggest thing. So if you dob a bit of bread, say, firstly, you've located them and you set your rig at 6 foot deep, and your bread just goes, they ain't following nothing. So the most important thing is, again, locating them off the bottom of where they're sat. So if it's over here, you know, just say just above their head, they're not going to like swim up. Well, they might do if it was a little bit, but if it's like that much, they're not going to physically go up to eat it, because again, they've got no interest in eating. But I think it's a reaction thing as well. So if you just get the depth just right, where it's in and amongst where they are, and I'm here and it's just me, will I eat it? I might do, doubt it. But if you was next to me and everyone that's on here, we're all in a little huddle, there's a good chance I'm going to eat it, purely because you might eat it. So it's almost like mugging them in the summer, to be honest. Like, they've got no interest in feeding. They're just swimming around, you know, in pairs, especially when they're looking to, you know, spawn and stuff. They've got no interest in feeding. But if you flick a rig at them, you normally get a bite when there's 2 or 3 there. And I think it's purely because it's a reaction thing. They ain't got time to think. They're just either going to eat it or ignore it. But more often than not, when there's 1, they just ignore it. But when there's 2, 1 always grabs it, because, say, it's that competition element. If I don't eat it, they're going to eat it, so I'm going to eat it. So that's another big thing is, again, like when you're mugging them, imagine if they were that much below the surface and you couldn't see them. But if you was, you know, it's 4 foot deep and you're trying to dob them, your rig's too deep. So, say, first thing, obviously, you've got to be able to find the fish. More often than not, and this is where the tricky bit comes, when you've got depth next to cover, then you can dob some fish next to cover. Again, when it's more carp, you will tend to dob more of them near the cover, because carp just always like swimming slightly shallower than the F1s do. But normally when you've got cover, if you've got some depth next to it, you can dob both of them. On bread, obviously, if there's some fish there, you can dob carp and you can dob F1s as well. It's when you've got, and it's not too deep across, so it might say be 2.5 foot across. You might dob an odd one, but if you get a bite, it's predominantly going to be from a carp. Again, if it was an F1, it'd probably be a massive one. But with the F1s, you tend to dob them in the deep water, so where the bottom of the track is, and you can dob them as well. Is fascinating that sometimes they can be more fish on the inside than two across, and this where sort of watercraft really helps. That, as you know, you hear me say a lot of the time, or if I was a fish, because I think you've got to look at it like that, especially say dobbing bread in the wintertime, and you sat there and you're thinking, if I was a fish, where would I sit? Where's the warmest, nicest bit to be able to sit? And more often than not, that's probably where they're going to be. They're not going to be over in the windy bit. So again, location is massive. Also, setting your rig at the right depth is massive. A brilliant telltale sign of when you're on some fish is you will bump into them with your plummet. So by using like a little light plummet, 10 gram plummet, and when you're moving your rig around, it'll bump. You know, oh, bloody hell, I just bumped into a fish there. When you're on the stack, the epicenter, the bread stack, is what you'll probably hear a lot of people say, dobbing stack, is when you're moving your rig and it just stops. And you're moving it and it just stays, and then eventually it goes blah, 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 blah. Where you rig, it's caught up. There's a ball of them, and you rig, your line, it won't go through them. They're not spooked by it. You know, they're not going to swim out of the way because they felt the line. The line eventually just goes through them. That's a great way of being able to find them when there's a volume of fish in front of you. And then the next thing is working out what is the best depth to dob them. So what I'm going to say, at tunnel, again, for all of the time that I've done it, it is shallower than what you're saying. So you're saying it's about 6 foot deep. But at tunnel, the best depth, I shouldn't be saying this, but everyone would have heard me say it on Match Focus. At tunnel, the best depth to dob them when you're in the track, for some reason, is 6 inch. No, I'm only joking. It's 32 inch. That's the best depth. Just over 2.5 foot. That just seems to be, if I'm fishing down the middle and I feel like there's some fish there, that's the depth. It just, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but that's where they like sitting. But just under, basically 2.5 foot below the surface. That's where they're happiest. And it must be that there's enough water above them that they don't feel scared and predated, but they're close enough to the surface where maybe that's the penetration of the sunlight point, where that bit might just be slightly warmer. That's just where they like sitting. On the lake that you're going to, it's definitely trial and error, but I would say the deepest probably you're going to dob them would be 3.5 to 4 foot max. But I would say the killing depth would be like anywhere between, say, that 2.5 foot deep in the open water to 3.5 foot. That would be my guesstimate at that sort of foot window. That's where the majority of them would be, you know, if you're feeling with your plummet. The one difference, though, is when you dob into cover. And sometimes you can dob them really shallow because they're huddled up and there's, you know, there's not as big a volume of water. So say it's 3.5 foot across. Well, they're not going to be the bottom 12 inches. They're not going to be the top 12 inches. So they're there. They're in that, say, that little window. But that little window might be like 2 foot. You know, that might be the depth, 20 inch, 2 foot, especially if it's some carp. That might, sometimes you can even dob them shallower, you know, like, especially carp. I've had it on club before where it's literally like 2 foot across and you're dobbing them, it's literally like 12, 14 inch and you're flicking your rig in, but when you get a bite, it's always from a carp. If you try to do that down the track, you'd never get a bite because it's way too shallow. So that's the biggest thing. Obviously, you need to be able to find the fish. It is not a magical bait. When you're talking about, you know, dobbing with corn, maggots and bread, personally, I just think bread's the best bait. Biggest thing again is like digestion. So the only time I'd be tempted to dob maggots, I probably wouldn't dob corn. Maggots is if there was a million like little blips in the lake where bread's not best because there's too many roach eating it. Then like a little bunch of maggots might be good. But personally, I'd always opt for bread first because I think you can change the size of your bait as well. You know, this is another big thing. You know, if you was fishing, say, an 8mm punch and you drop it in, you won't get a bite. From F1s, you probably catch some carp on it. But I just feel like a 6mm is the best. Again, if it was smaller than that, it might be a bit too small. So I just feel like a 6mm punch is the best. 6-7mm punch is best when it comes to your bread. Again, orange Warburtons, that's definitely the best bread. Another big thing when you're dobbing is, and I've had this happen, I'm going to say more often than not now, again, dobbing is not something you can really practice because you've got to be on them. But the amount of times where you punch your bread out, you know, put it on your hook, roll it around on your hook, go in, flick your rig in, within a minute or two, you get a bite. And then after that, it don't seem to be as effective. And I think what it is basically your bread swelled up too big. And the amount of times you're flicking it around, and then eventually you come back in, you know, your bread might fall off, it's dripping off your hook, come back in, bait up, go in, again within a minute and a half, in that same area, it goes under and you catch one. So that's another big thing to be messing around with. When it comes to your rig, though, there's two basically different types of float that I would use. The first one is this one, which is called, so there's two sizes here. So the first one is this one, which is called like an RW dobber. So they sell it in a 3 number 10 and a 5 number 10. And I think I would say that 3 number 10 is perfect for like maybe down to 3 foot. Whereas when you want to be fishing deeper than that, then your 5 number 10 dobber. I feel like that is a lovely float when you fish with a carp because it's really nice and buoyant. You know, that's what it's made for. Literally dobbing bread, that's all this float's made for. So those are the two that I would tend to use. But again, I don't get a lot of chance to do it. But the float that I used last year, and I was talking to our cameraman Baz, because again we're both getting ready for tunnel, but using a Winter Maggie was a brilliant float last year. And I can't remember, it was a 4B8 or a 4B10, but that one, little RW Winter Maggie it's called, was brilliant when I was dobbing in the open water. So I feel like that float is definitely a better float when you're fishing for F1s, and say up to like, what's the max? Yeah, max depth, like 3.5 foot really. Whereas if you was dobbing a little bit deeper than that, say that 5 number 10 would probably be better. But yeah, hopefully that helps you. Say there's a lot to it, and unfortunately it's one of them things that you can't go and practice, because even if you went and practice and you found the stack, you'd go in, catch one, catch two, and then they just swim off from you. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of advice when it comes to dobbing bread. So this one's from Steve. Cheers, Mr. P. See you in AB tomorrow on the live. Time, it is 6:30. Yeah, definitely 6:30. I had to think about that then. But yes, I'll see you tomorrow, Steve. Hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. So this one's from Jules. It's Jules, but it's Julian. Nick Gilbert makes a float like that called a gimp. So again, another option like float maker wise. So this one's from Daniel. Hi Paul, what hooks would you use for fishing for silverfish at Meadowlands? So personally, depending on how good the fishing was, I would probably use a 14 or a 16 F1 pellet hook or an F1 maggot hook. Those would be the two options that I use. I feel like a Super LWG probably be a bit too heavy now. But yeah, those are the two that I would use. Again, it depends on what hook bait you're using. That's a big thing. Like when you're using bits of worm on the hook, then you can always use a bigger hook. Always seem to get away with a slightly bigger hook. But those would be the hooks that I would definitely look to use. F1 pellet hook, Guru F1 pellet hook, or F1 maggot hook. Them F1 maggot hooks are such a nice hook as well. Even like the one thing I will say is with an F1 maggot hook is like an 18's more like a 16, the 16's more like a 14 in other sizes. So, but they're just lovely. Them, you know, there's such a long point on them as well. So I don't get a chance to do loads of it, but those would be my 2 hook choices. So this one's from Wayne. Can you show us winter-eyed shallow rig 1 to 3 foot deep? So again, these same floats, I would probably, so for a foot deep, the one that I would use would be, say they're all winter maggies, it's just the different sizes. So I've got, like, you'll have to bear with me because some of my floats are like prototype ones, they ain't got any writing on. So that one is an RW 2x13, 2 number 13, and it literally takes 2 number 13 shot. That one for like a foot to 14-inch deep is perfect. Then you could use a 3x12, so literally takes 3 number 12 shot or 4 number 13 shot. If you just wanted one flow, or you'd need 2 floats, then I'd opt for that 3x12 for up to, say, maybe 18-inch deep. And then for deeper than that, then I'd use a 3x8 winter maggie. Like how I like doing it is, say, different depths. So I'd have a few different rigs set up because I just feel like harder a nightmare. If it was me, again, give you a rough thing of guide of depth. So if I just get one more out, it'd be 4x8 winter maggie. So the reason I keep them in my bags is because I know which ones I painted, etc. So a 2 number 13, I think that's perfect for fishing like 8 to 14-inch deep. Then a 3x12 for like 14-inch to, say, 20-inch deep. And then for a little bit, like 20-inch to 2.5 foot, personally, then a 3x8 winter maggie, and then a 4x8 winter maggie for 2.5 to 3 foot deep. And the biggest thing is it's the amount of shot it takes, but it's also the length of the flow. So they all stagger in sizes. And I know it might seem like insignificant, but in that depth, having the right length flow, the right length of bristle, taking the right amount of shot, it does make a massive difference. So I know that might seem a bit too much in detail, Wayne, but definitely give them a go. And when you get into it, you'll understand exactly what I mean, that you'll have a rig set for like 8 to 14-inch deep, a rig set for like 14 to 20 odd inch, 22-inch, and then a rig for a little bit deeper. And once you've done it, it immediately makes sense. But those are definitely the floats that you want for that. So we've got 2 more, and then I love you and leave you. God, I can't believe how long we've been going for. So this one's from Lewis. Favourite bait for this time of the year for carp and F1s. If I had to pick one bait, it would 1,000,000% be live maggots, and I'd have some Skimmer's Dark to be able to tap a little bit of that in, a little bit of sloppy Skimmer's Dark, loose feeding a few live maggots. That would definitely be my bait. I just don't think you can go wrong with tiny bit of ground bait and some live maggots. I just, pellets can be good, but maggots and a bit of ground bait always get your bites, Lewis. So hopefully that helps. And then our last one, this one's from Daniel Cox. What paint do you put on your float? So paint wise, just use this Sensors paint. All you've got to do is when you get it, there's a ball bearing inside it, and you just need to shake it until you hear it. But biggest thing before you do it, just shake it for like a good minute, and just, I'm trying to think of, it's been a long time since I've decorated, but yeah, basically the type of paint in it, I can't believe I've forgotten it. That is me showing me age. It goes off really, really quickly. So biggest thing is make sure you shake it, get that ball bearing really working, loosen, thin all the paint up, cellulose base. That's what it is. And then when you paint your flow, let me show you. It makes it easier rather than talking. So has that one been painted? No. So we'll do a yellow float so I can show you. The biggest thing is when you're doing it is not to overthink it, and that's one of the biggest things about using this type of paint, because the more you play around with it, the worse you're going to make it. So you can hear it and I can feel it like loosening up in there. So I'm going to lower my screen so I can show you how I do it. So there you'll be able to see. So once I open it up, is just gently wipe it so you don't get too much paint on it, and like the bristles flatten out. And then the way that I do it, this is a struggle. Let me see if I can do it here. It's harder to do it here than this way. I do it on the point in my desk like that. So I can do it from the eye up once, turn it around and do it from the opposite side up once. But by doing it on my desk and facing it like the eye upright first, is once I've painted it, when I twist it, I know that I'm not over painting the same bit. So from my eye, again, just gently wipe the paint. So I go from the doing it, making sure there is the best bit. So from there, just below the eye, up once, just below, up once. Pop that back in, and then what I do is I just twist it, so I can put you back up now. So I just twist it in my fingers. I don't overly look at it. Anytime you're painting anything, it always looks worse wet than it does basically once it's dry. So just spin it around, and it won't take long to go off. So just spin it around. That's enough. And then over here, I've just got like my weights that I stole from my mum's years old, like 1 kilo, 1 pound and 1 kilo weights from her weighing scales. Best thing ever. And then I've just got a little bit of foam here. And then just pop that down on my desk. There's the best spot. Stand my float in it and do the next one. And just let them go off. Don't look and think, oh, I might have missed a bit there. Oh, that bit looks a bit grinny. Just leave it. And I promise you, once it's dry, you'll think, I swear somebody's come and painted that float in the night, because it didn't look anything like that when I painted it. And that's the best way of using it, Daniel. So yeah, 1,000,000%, that's the best way. So sorry, got it wrong. So what David's put, acrylic paint, that's what it is, not cellulose based, acrylic paint. Say it's been a long time, David, since I've done me walls, but yeah, it's been a long time since I've done it. And then our last one is from Alex Holloway. Hi, Alex, hope you're keeping well. And he's put, hi, Paul, hope you're keeping well. No doubt I'll be seeing you at the tunnel at some point, Alex. So yeah, that's say our giveaway. Massive well done to all of the winners. Sorry this went on a little bit longer, but I think whenever I'm talking about fishing, I feel like we're all the same. You get carried away with it, and it's always nice to have a chat about fishing. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Say our live tomorrow with Andy. Hopefully I'll see a few of you over there, and yeah, really, really looking forward to it. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you all tomorrow. Cheers.